Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Stylish Study podcast. Today we are going to be tackling the dreaded overwhelm. Something that everyone experiences. I feel like students especially can really get very overwhelmed. It's a very overwhelming time of your life to be having to go through exams or not go through exams at the moment, and we just want to chat about it. And if you are too overwhelmed to even begin your work, this is going to really help. We're going to be talking about some steps that you can take. We're just going to be chatting about it, and really hopefully by the end of this podcast you will feel a little better equipped to deal with your overwhelm. So I have dealt with my fair share of overwhelm in my life. Now, doesn't have to be school related, but I'm going to talk about school related things just for the purpose of this podcast. I was actually too overwhelmed to change my grades in year 11. Now, if you haven't heard my story before, I essentially did year 11, kind of floated through it. Then I opened my results. I really was not very happy. I thought I was going to get these amazing grades by not really doing that much because I didn't know how to do it. And then I cried on results day, and it just wasn't a good vibe. So I literally in year 11 felt too overwhelmed to even begin, to even just get started. I didn't know what to do, and that really limited me and my progress essentially, because I just stuck my head in the sand. And this is something that I've really learned from, and it's something that I reflect back on whenever I'm like, this project is too big for me to do, I just feel so overwhelmed, therefore I'm just gonna lay in bed and I'll try and do it at the last minute. I don't try and stick my head in the sand anymore, because I know that ultimately it may be a little bit difficult to get going, but if I stick my head in the sand, all hell will break loose and I just won't be able to carry on. So this carried on, sticking my head in the sand, up until probably sixth form really. That was when I went, look, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but my dream grades are 3 A's and I'm going to work my little socks off to get there. I didn't know how, and I didn't know what to do, because I just spent a whole year, if not basically the whole of year 10 and 11, not feeling like I was ever going to get A's or 8s and 9s. So therefore I didn't even just try. Basically I was too overwhelmed at the fact that I wasn't A star / 7, 8, 9 grade student, that I didn't ever progress, because I thought I'm not up to that level, therefore I can never be at that level. It sounds, when you say it out loud, so ridiculous, but when you feel it in the moment, you cannot, your blinkers are on, you do not think of anything else other than, I'm not an A star student, so therefore I'm never going to be able to get those A's, and if I'm not working to that level, then it's just going to be embarrassing, and I just don't even want to try. So when I was so overwhelmed, I had no idea how I was going to get myself out of it, and I overthought how I was going to get out of it, and I overthought what grades I needed to get to be out of it, that I never tried, and that I was just too overwhelmed. I rebelled, I stuck my head in the sand, I didn't want anything to do with that. I was like, look, I'm just going to let nature take its course, I'm just going to let fate happen, and I'm just going to, I guess, accept the fact that I don't feel like I'll be an A-star student, therefore I'm just going to let it happen. Then results day happened, I cried, it was really not the best day ever, and then for sixth form I was just like, right, I'm going to try. And that was the only way to get over my overwhelm. And I know this is going to be so annoying for so many people to hear, I wanted a magic formula, I wanted something that I could quickly, easily do to get me out of this overwhelm. And yes, there are so many things that you can do to get yourself out of overwhelm, but the only thing that is going to be sustainable, and the only thing that will actually provide solid results rather than just facades of progress and false hope, really, is just giving it a go and just trying. So when I entered sixth form, I was like, right, I'm going to set myself this goal of 3 A's and I'm really going to get there. And by trying, I ended up better than 3 A's. I ended up with my A star AA, which is something that I am so proud of. Never thought that I could ever achieve that. Little me in year 11, who was getting barely 4s, to then go from someone that actually tried, believed in themselves, and just carried on and just pushed through even when times were difficult, then could get that A-star AA. I was like, oh my God, I've done it. Like, wow. So it's really just about kind of, if you try and take that first step, the next step will appear, and then the next step will appear, and the next step. But overwhelm is self-created. Overwhelm isn't something that actually happens. Yes, it happens, but it's a mental thing. It's not a physical thing. It's not a physical problem. It's a mental barrier that we create in our minds when we just think of too many things, and then our mind creates it as this massive task. But it doesn't have to be like that. We don't have to see it in that way. It's all about changing your perspective really with overwhelm, rather than actually trying to fight it. It's just changing your perspective and just trying, and that is what will get you through the days where you feel overwhelmed. And it's totally natural to feel overwhelmed. You have a lot to do, but sticking your head in the sand is a surefire way to get nothing done. And that was something that I totally learned, and that is something that I still learn day to day. If I have a massive project that I need to complete and I just waste a day watching YouTube all day, I know that I've not actually dealt with that. I've just pushed myself further backwards, because now I have one day less to still complete the same amount of work. I literally just changed this by trying. It's really difficult. The first step is always the hardest, as they say. But once you start, like I said, the next step will reappear, and then the next step. And before you know it, you'll basically be on your way. Sometimes what we have to do with overwhelm is look at the big picture. So if we focus on what is going on right now and what we feel like we need to do right now, we will get really overwhelmed, and we'll be like, oh my goodness, I have this, and this to do. But if we can look at it from a bigger perspective and put it into an actual perspective of, okay, so if I got this little bit done today, then I got that little bit done tomorrow, then you gradually build up this future perspective of it just being done. It will get done. You just have to kind of focus on the future and focus on the completion, and the how will come. If it's a real big thing that you don't know how, don't be afraid to ask for help. If it's something that you're like, okay, I'm sticking my head in the sand now because I actually don't know how to complete this task, or I actually have a lot of questions, just help yourself and just ask someone. Whether you Google it, whether you ask a teacher, whether you ask a friend, whether it's your parents, just ask someone. There's no shame in not knowing something, but just constantly putting your head in the sand, I feel like I've said that a million times now, is a surefire way to just make things worse. So we're going to talk about some steps now that you can take if you are feeling really overwhelmed. So if you know that you have something coming up and you're like, oh my goodness, I really don't want to do it, I don't know how I'm going to do it, and you just feel really stressed and overwhelmed, here are a few steps that you can take. So the first thing is just blurt everything out. Write it down, put it in a mind map, make a really messy to-do list. Literally write everything down, whether that is all your academic things, or maybe you have a few things going on in your personal life, maybe you have some extracurricular activities, everything that you need to do, or anything that is on your mind. Maybe they're even just little thoughts that you have about this project, or just about everything in general. Write them all down, blurt it out, get it out. Once you see it on paper, it will become less of a tangled mess, and you should be able to work through it more methodically and start to categorize things. It's kind of like when you have a messy room. If you can just kind of get everything together, you can slowly start to put things away. But when everything is just all a little bit scattered everywhere, it's much harder to just see it and just get it done. You're kind of compartmentalizing it, but it's not doing anything. It's not actually helping you. Then remember again that overwhelm is self-created. Most of the time, the thing that you are building up in your head is a lot worse than what you will actually have to go through and what you will actually have to complete. Just remember that this is, one, it's kind of normal. Well, it is normal. People go through this all the time. So don't beat yourself up about being overwhelmed, because that's not going to help anything. It's just going to make it worse. But remember that other people go through this as well. Like, I go through it myself. I'm sure if you ask your friends, they will be saying exactly the same thing. But know that it is not a physical problem. It is something mental that we can get over with some steps. We can get over it with a bit of organisation, a bit of reduced procrastination. We will get there. It's just something that we've built up in our heads, but we can sort it out. So then work out from that piece of paper what you don't know. This might sound of a little bit of a weird step, but write out what you don't know. Now, I'm not talking about if you say that you need to do an exam paper for tomorrow that you don't know what the answer to question 3 is. Write out what you don't know how to do. Let's say you have a project, maybe you need to create a website for it because it's something for ICT. Maybe you don't actually know how you need to create a website. Maybe you don't know which websites are good for creating websites. When you have a question like that, write it down, put it in your kind of mind map of things, and then make a plan. Okay, who are you going to ask to help? What do you need to Google to then solve that problem? Chances are these things that you're like, oh, I don't even know how to do that, so I don't even know where to begin. From writing these things down, you will probably find out 2 things. First thing, that problem was mental, that it actually wasn't even a massive thing. You actually just needed to think through it methodically rather than just everything coming out of your brain all at once and all jumbled up all inside your brain. That then once you start to do it methodically and you start to write it out, you actually knew the answer, or you actually knew where to go to for help. So once you actually know what you do know and what you don't know, we can start actually creating a plan. So like I said, if you know that there's something that you aren't sure of, who can you ask? Where can you get help from? What services are there online? What things can you join? Which communities can you join? Which Instagrams can you join? Which TikToks can you follow? There will be plenty of people out there that will be able to help you. I myself included at Stylish Study, but there are obviously loads of other places that you can get help from. Your teachers, your heads of years, your head teachers, everyone there is there to support you. And if it is something that you don't know, do not be embarrassed to ask someone about it, because the more that you know, the less you will shove your head in the sand and the more progress you will be able to then make. My last massive tip for overwhelm is use priority lists. Now, when you create your daily to-do list, please do not carry on writing just your lists on a piece of paper, the standard to-do list that we all are guilty of doing. Please do not do this from now on. Start writing your days in priority lists. These are going to be so helpful for you. Using my hero strategy of must do, could do, should do. So essentially your must do tasks go in your must do, your should do tasks, which are the tasks that you should probably do, but they aren't totally essential, go in your should do. And the could do's are the things that you kind of would be good to do, but they don't have to be done today or even this week, go in there. So start writing your day in priority order. This is going to stop the overwhelm, because essentially what you are going to want to do with your day, and I'm guilty of it as well, is do those low priority tasks first. Doing those tasks that feel easy, that feel like they're okay, and that feel like they will ease you into the day. Now, if you are like the majority of people, your most productive time is going to be in the morning. So leaving those high productive tasks till the end of the day is a surefire way for them to be rolled over onto tomorrow. And if they roll on over tomorrow, then tomorrow's to-do list is even longer. And by the end of the week, you end up with this massive long to-do list where you've done all your tiny little not too important tasks. And then at the end of the week, you've been left with your absolutely massive task that should have been done. And now you're overwhelmed because it's now the weekend. You now just want to relax. And now you know that on Monday morning, you are going to be facing your biggest tasks. And nothing meaningful feels like it's ever done. So please start to write your tasks in a priority list. If you're looking to plan your days in a more effective way with a must do, could do, should do list, with the Eat the Frog method, with a habit tracker, with a mental health tracker, and you're just really after a great daily planner, us at Stylish Study have created a daily planner. It's called Here's the Plan, and if you go to stylishstudy.com/shop, you will find it on there. So I hope this podcast episode was helpful. As always, screenshot you listening to us and post it on your story. We would love to see that you are listening and sharing it to as many students as possible. The more students that we can share it to, the more students that we can help out with our podcast, and we would love to do that to help everyone's revision be a little bit easier and to help guide them through school. Also, be sure to check out Stylish Study on Instagram. We are at stylishstudy_. You can grab so many more revision tips on there, and also us on TikTok as well. And yeah, we will catch you next week with a brand new podcast episode. See you then.